Space has always fascinated us, serving as a remarkable destination for affluent tourists. However, for the military, it's a potential new battleground. And today, countries like the United States, Russia, and China are continually upping their game in this quiet yet intense race for space supremacy. The latest murmurs in the cosmic community now suggest that the US is on the verge of revealing a stellar invention that will put them ahead of other competing countries. The introduction of a laser-based space weapon represents a milestone in the Space Force's arsenal, and its potential to spark a revolution in modern warfare is nothing short of extraordinary. Join us as we delve into how this American laser space weapon shocked the world. The United States Space Force, USSF, is an integral part of the American Armed Forces, handling all matters related to space within the United States. Its journey to independence is an interesting one. Before its establishment as an independent uniformed service, the USSF operated as the Air Force Space Command, functioning under the U.S. Army from 1982 to 2019. This shift in status, which came about during the tenure of then U.S. President Donald Trump, mirrors the structure of the Air Force. The official birth of the Space Force occurred in December 2019. It marked the United States' recognition of the pivotal role that space would play in modern warfare. We hope never to see the practical application of this, but on paper, the strategic importance of space is unmistakable. As we delve into the realm of the Space Force, let's remember that it remains the smallest armed service in the U.S., comprised of approximately 6,434 personnel, supported by 77 spacecraft. This figure pales in comparison to the vast resources of the Air Force, boasting over 5,000 manned aircraft, 406 intercontinental ballistic missiles, and a workforce of over 650,000 military personnel and civilians. It's worth noting that the United States allocates a substantial portion of its budget to the armed forces, making it a powerhouse of advanced technology, equipment, and billions of dollars at the Space Force's disposal. According to Defense News, the launch estimate for the Space Force was a staggering $2 billion, with projections indicating costs could swell to a remarkable $13 billion by 2024. Furthermore, the personnel count is expected to increase to 15,000 within this time frame. These substantial financial investments are channeled into managing and maintaining multiple systems, such as the GPS, military satellite communications, missile warning systems, space surveillance network, and satellite control network. Additionally, there's the Boeing X-37B reusable robotic spacecraft, a fascinating piece of technology under their jurisdiction. Interestingly, the global space economy is forecasted to more than double, from the current $450 billion to an astonishing $1 trillion within the next 2 decades. It's a testament to the growing importance of space exploration and commerce. In March 2020, the Space Force marked a significant milestone with its first official launch. A military communications satellite was launched into space, carried aloft by a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket. In 2021, the Guardians, as Space Force members are affectionately called, successfully executed their first tactically responsive launch mission, deploying the Tacral II satellite into low Earth orbit. This mission showcased their commitment to enhancing the agility and responsiveness of the United States, not just in deep space, but also in the region just a few miles above Earth's surface. The very existence of the Space Force can be seen as a response to what appears to be a burgeoning war of satellites, especially in the context of geopolitical competition with China and Russia. In 2013, China set the stage for a significant leap in space capabilities when it launched an experimental satellite. The satellite's name was Xi'an, meaning experiment. No clues were given to the nature of the experiment, but Xi'an's actions were the actual giveaway. It was observed maneuvering near a smaller satellite and shadowing it for a time. The watchful eyes at AGI, or Analytical Graphics Inc., were monitoring this Xi'an satellite activity closely, and their amazement peaked when the smaller satellite seemed to vanish and reappear on their radars. These radar systems are known for their robustness, so glitches weren't likely. Further investigation revealed the astonishing truth that Xi'an had grappling arms, which it used to repeatedly pluck the smaller satellite out of its orbit and then return it. An anti-satellite weapon, often referred to as ASAT, like this one, is a class of space weaponry designed to either incapacitate or completely obliterate enemy satellites, whether for strategic or tactical motives. China, while admitting to this capability, asserted it was solely for research purposes and handling space debris. However, the unsettling reality is that they have a satellite in operation with the ability to navigate to other satellites and, essentially, pluck them from space. In earlier times, military interests primarily revolved around the orbital constellations of satellites. However, contemporary developments have taken this sphere even further, with thousands or even millions of crucial elements entwined in the civil infrastructure of highly advanced nations. Notably, this includes seemingly benign entities such as communication satellites and global positioning systems, which serve as the bedrock of navigation in our modern gadgets, as well as meteorological services. These entities, although seemingly peaceful, possess dual-use capabilities. They can be harnessed for intelligence purposes, and this duality doesn't go unnoticed by advanced military powers. Consequently, it's a vital consideration for such nations to confront the presence of this potentially dangerous element in the arsenals of their adversaries. This realization has spurred the development of ASAT systems. While anti-satellite weapons have not seen combat applications, several prominent countries, like the United States, China, India, and Russia, have demonstrated their capabilities by successfully intercepting and destroying their own satellites. This showcases their technological prowess and underlines their readiness to safeguard their interests in the ever-evolving space arena. The multifaceted nature of ASAT systems means they can serve several roles concurrently. They act as defensive measures against space-based and nuclear threats from adversaries. Additionally, they can function as force multipliers for the initial nuclear strike, countermeasures against enemy missile defense, and asymmetric responses to counter technologically superior foes. Back in the early 2000s, a debate was ignited, prompted by the U.S. Space Security Commission, acting upon a congressional mandate. This discussion revolved around the role of ASAT systems in the complex relationship between the United States and China. The Commission raised concerns, suggesting that China was preparing for a massive preemptive strike on U.S. satellites, coining the term Space Pearl Harbor. They asserted that this strategy could serve as a form of asymmetric warfare, enabling China, even if militarily weaker, to gain a decisive advantage over the United States. Heightening U.S. apprehensions was China's successful test of another formidable anti-satellite weapon in January 2007. In this test, a Chinese FY-1C weather satellite orbiting at an altitude of 865 kilometers became the target. It was shot down by a ballistic missile known in U.S. military jargon as the SC-19, armed with a kinetic warhead. In essence, this was a modified version of the DF-21, or CSC 5.3, a two-stage solid propellant medium-range ballistic missile. The FY-1C was part of the series of Chinese Fengyun satellites launched back in 1999. Meanwhile, Russia also was not to be outdone. They introduced the kamikaze satellite, officially known as Cosmos 2499, in 2014. This satellite exhibited unparalleled maneuvering abilities, which allowed it to approach other satellites and either disable or destroy them. Initially, the U.S. had tracked it as a piece of space debris, only for it to spring to life and get remarkably close to other satellites. Given that these satellites can travel at speeds of up to 17,500 miles per hour, Kamikaze's maneuverability hinted at a clear intent. In 2017, Russia took its satellite capabilities a step further by launching another satellite that disgorged a smaller one. This smaller satellite, in turn, launched a projectile, a clear indication of potential military use. Such actions understandably perturbed the United States, and they weren't content with being just spectators. 2 years later, in 2019, Russia unveiled the Nesting Doll satellite, a culmination of their previous efforts. This new satellite could skillfully approach other satellites in orbit, conduct surveillance, deploy a smaller satellite, and then launch a projectile. In one incident, the Nesting Doll ventured uncomfortably close to a U.S. satellite, prompting official complaints to Russia. It's hardly surprising that the birth of the Space Force occurred towards the end of that year. The United States heavily relies on satellites for various critical functions. As of today, they have a staggering 1,897 satellites in orbit, while China follows with 412 and Russia with 176. These satellites are indispensable for monitoring threats, aiding in land, air, and sea navigation, surveillance, communications, missile detection, missile guidance, and an array of essential tasks. Paradoxically, they float in space, relatively unprotected. Recognizing this vulnerability, the Pentagon sought $304 million in the 2020 budget to bolster space weaponry initiatives. Since then, a series of tests have been conducted, primarily focusing on directed energy weapons, such as neutral particle beams and lasers. The United States has had directed energy weapon projects in the pipeline for decades, but recent developments have escalated the stakes. The U.S. military recently conducted its first operational laser test in the Persian Gulf, and it proved to be a resounding success. These laser beams, traveling at the speed of light, obliterated targets on land and in flight. More tests are currently in progress to further refine laser weapons capable of degrading or damaging satellites, whether from the ground or when mounted on fighter jets. The Air Force's Self-Protect High-Energy Laser Program, with a budget of $155 million, comprises 3 key components, which are laser advancements for next-generation combat environments, or LANCE, the STRAF, or Self-Protect High-Energy Laser Control System, and the Laser Pod Research and Development Container, which Boeing is developing. The military is keen on selecting the most cost-effective component that gets the job done. It's no surprise that the military is exploring this field of weaponry. Lasers have several advantages that make them highly appealing for military use. They operate at the speed of light, are incredibly precise, and offer a low cost per shot with virtually unlimited ammunition. One of the most promising initiatives in aerial laser weapons is the Self-Protect High-Energy Laser Demonstrator. Currently, it exists as a bulky ground-based demonstrator. Still, the U.S. Air Force has ambitious plans to shrink it down to a small pod that can be tested on an F-15 fighter, with eventual integration into F-16 and F-35 single-engine fighters. If these airborne lasers prove as viable and effective as anticipated, the future of aerial warfare could be forever altered. The Self-Protect High-Energy Laser is designed as a defensive active protection system aimed at destroying or disrupting incoming air-to-air and surface-to-air missiles. Long-range missiles, like Russia's 48N6 surface-to-air missile or R-37 air-to-air missile, pose a significant threat to vulnerable support radar and tanker planes from over 200 miles away. While 4th and 5th generation jet fighters become visible on radar at shorter ranges, the odds of evading more maneuverable short-range missiles are pretty low, around 20 to 30%. Here's where lasers come into play. Even a relatively weak laser could, in theory, disrupt or destroy the sensitive optical guidance systems of incoming missiles with precision. More powerful lasers might damage missile control systems or trigger warheads thermally. As of June 29, 2023, another remarkable milestone was achieved in space technology, marking a celebration of 2 significant events. The U.S. Naval Research Laboratory's Space Wireless Energy Laser Link, affectionately known as SWELL, hit the 100-day mark of successful laser operations in orbit, coinciding with the 100th anniversary of the NRL. SWELL embarked on its journey into space on March 14, 2023, and its mission represents a historic breakthrough in the annals of laser power, beaming in the cosmic expanse. It has found its home aboard the International Space Station as part of the U.S. Department of Defense Space Test Program H-9 mission. Continuously, Swell has provided approximately 1.5 watts of power at the output of the power beaming receiver. More significantly, this entire process boasts an end-to-end efficiency that hovers around 11%. This achievement is not just a minor triumph. It surpasses the team's efficiency goals by more than 10-fold. For a power beaming link, Swell operates at a distance of 1.45 meters. To the best of the NRL's knowledge, this experiment not only marks the pioneering instance of laser power beaming in the vacuum of space, but also stands as the record holder for the highest power, longest distance, and most efficient power beaming demonstration in orbit, regardless of type. Meanwhile, China, as reported by Space News, is gearing up to deploy ground-based lasers with the potential to blind satellite sensors and potentially destroy satellite hardware structures. This is undoubtedly a substantial leap forward, but even these ground-to-space laser weapons might not suffice, given the evolving dynamics of modern warfare. Space is increasingly shaping up to be the primary battleground, necessitating the development of space-to-space weapons. In anticipation of these changes, satellites are expected to be equipped with both defensive and offensive weapons, including stealth capabilities, easy maneuverability, and a distributed architecture for defense. There are plans to launch a remarkable 1,300 satellites, ensuring that even if a few of them are damaged, the overall system won't be crippled. On the offensive front, research is underway on laser-mounted satellites designed to blind sensors and damage hardware. While we've made remarkable progress with lasers on Earth, it's a different ballgame in space due to vastly distinct conditions. One of the primary challenges of employing laser weapons in space is the issue of power. Lasers require a significant amount of energy to generate and sustain the high-intensity beams needed for effective weaponry. In space, power sources can be limited, and transporting bulky energy supplies to orbit is a complex and costly endeavor. This raises questions about the practicality of maintaining a continuous power source for laser weapons. Another substantial challenge is the transmission of laser beams through the vacuum of space. Unlike in Earth's atmosphere, where there may be particles and molecules that interact with the laser and create a visible beam, space is essentially empty. Therefore, the laser beam can't be seen, making it challenging to target and track objects precisely. Moreover, over long distances, the laser beam can disperse, making it less effective. These satellites also travel at breakneck speeds, approaching 20,000 miles per hour, making them incredibly difficult targets. For a laser weapon to be effective, it must lock onto its target accurately. Precisely tracking and targeting such swiftly moving objects requires sophisticated and rapid response systems. However, it's worth noting that these are manageable challenges. Russia has already developed its Polya spacecraft, capable of carrying a megawatt carbon dioxide laser, the highest power continuous wave laser available today. The story of the Polyus goes as far back as the 1980s during the Cold War. After Ronald Reagan assumed office, he delivered a patriotic and stirring speech underlining the United States' ongoing struggle against oppressive regimes. In this address, he unveiled an ambitious space program that aimed to usher weaponry into the cosmos. The linchpin of his vision was a missile shield that would render the U.S. impervious to enemy intercontinental ballistic missiles. This grandiose project soon acquired the somewhat mocking moniker of the Star Wars Initiative. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Iron Curtain, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev was striving for peace on the international stage. He urged Reagan to reconsider this path, but the U.S. president remained undeterred. Soviet officials, in a somewhat ironic twist, encouraged Reagan to proceed with his missile program, hoping to drive home the need for a similar initiative on their part. Gorbachev eventually approved an even more ambitious venture. The centerpiece of this endeavor was the Russian Polyus-Skif spacecraft, ominously dubbed the Red Death Star. It was designed as a space-based laser system intended to unleash its firepower against potential adversaries in the event of a conflict. The world watched as the possibility of a new dimension in warfare, the Star Wars era, loomed on the horizon. This concept was a departure from the initial intentions of the space race, which had been rooted in the desire to conquer outer space through competing technological achievements. The project bore a striking resemblance to the American Star Wars program, but with its distinct objectives. At its core, the Polyus-Skif aimed to counter American missile defense systems using an advanced megawatt carbon dioxide laser. As Soviet space historian Asif Siddiqui revealed during an interview with Duane Day from Air and Space magazine, the Soviet Union had funneled resources into two substantial research and development studies during the late 1970s and early 1980s. These studies were undertaken to explore ways to counteract hypothetical American missile defense concepts. Two intriguing concepts emerged from these endeavors: Skif, a laser cannon orbiting in space, and another weapon named Cascade, designed to neutralize enemy satellites by launching missiles from another craft in orbit. By mid-1984, Energia, a prominent Soviet space corporation, had put forth a proposal to the Kremlin. They proposed to employ their laser-equipped Skif and the guided missile platform Cascade as components of an integrated system. To achieve this, they repurposed an existing space station. The Soviet engineers initially contemplated integrating a massive and potent laser design by the Astrophysics company. However, this design proved too large to be accommodated by existing rockets. Consequently, they adopted Energia's proposal and used the more compact Skif laser. This choice paved the way for the birth of the Polyus-Skif project. The name Polyus signified the North Pole in Russian, while Skif alluded to the Scythians, an ancient warrior tribe from Central Asia. Though this project eventually failed, its development raised the prospect of space-to-ground weapons, a notion that's as intimidating as it sounds. Nonetheless, there are currently no such weapons in the works, thanks to an international treaty that prohibits their deployment. This treaty is entirely reasonable, considering the potential consequences of space-based weaponry. Thanks for watching. While you're still here, click on the link appearing on your screen for another of our interesting videos. See you there.